The auditorium was hushed. A large screen glowed with the title card, The Promise She Kept. Beneath it, a single black and white photograph appeared, Elise, standing in a sunlit garden, eyes closed, wind catching her hair, the faintest trace of a smile on her lips. The room was filled with strangers and supporters, press and policymakers, survivors and skeptics. But all were silent. Then, from backstage, Elise walked out. Slowly. Steadily. With Lily on one side. Daniel on the other. She wore a simple navy coat, her mother's silver swallow brooch pinned to the lapel, and as she approached the podium, the room rose to its feet. The final words. Elise looked out at the crowd. Then into the cameras. I don't remember everything, she began. There are days when the names blur. When faces I love slip away like mist. But there's one thing I remember, even now. She paused. The promise. To my son, whom I gave away to protect. To my daughter, whom I held too tightly out of fear. To myself, when I was a girl barely more than 17, looking in the mirror, promising I would never become silent. I broke that promise for a long time. Out of fear. Shame, guilt. But I found it again, inside the cracks of memory, inside the love I thought I didn't deserve. A breath. You don't have to be whole to speak truth. You just have to be willing. The applause was thunderous. The legacy. After the screening, the audience flooded social media with clips, quotes, and tears. Elise's name trended worldwide. But it wasn't about fame. It was about testimony. Daniel's art show opened 1 week later, titled The Archive of the Forgotten. Elise's notebook, digitized page by page, was displayed under protective glass. His final piece, a portrait of Elise looking straight ahead but layered with 3 versions of herself, young, middle-aged, and now. Lily published an op-ed called The Cost of Silence. It went viral not because of its eloquence, but because of its honesty. And the FBI? They reopened every cold case linked to the cold mirror file system. A dozen buried operations unearthed. 2 indictments. A congressional inquiry. History, at last, started listening. At a private brunch hosted by a foundation for Alzheimer's advocacy, Lily received an envelope. Inside, confirmation that Elise had been unknowingly part of a pilot study in memory resilience research, the result of her long-term cognitive interviews and story sessions. Her ability to recover memories under emotional duress had sparked interest in new treatments. A research grant was launched in her name. The Elise Harper Memory Justice Fund. Its first mission, to help survivors of trauma reassemble forgotten lives. Final scene. A quiet garden. Elise sat on a wooden bench beneath a willow tree. Her hands were folded neatly in her lap. A journal sat beside her. The sun filtered through the leaves in golden strands. Lily sat beside her. Daniel stood behind them, camera in hand, not photographing, just watching. Elise looked out at the garden. Then at Lily. Where are we? She asked gently. Lily smiled. We're home. Elise nodded slowly. And whispered, good. I promised I'd find my way back. She didn't say anything else. She didn't need to. Her eyes closed softly. The wind moved gently through the willow. And the screen faded to black. She remembered what they tried to erase. And in doing so, gave others the courage to do the same, in memory of those whose stories were never heard. Evelyn Carter sat frozen in her chair, staring at the paper spread across the table. The words refused to leave her head. I know what you did. The house was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the restless groan of the wind pressing against the windows. Evelyn's fingers, knotted with arthritis, traced the uneven letters again and again, as though by touching them she could prove they weren't real. It's just a prank, she whispered to the empty kitchen. Just a stupid prank. But the air seemed to shift, heavy with something unspoken. She rose unsteadily, the chair scraping across the floor, and crossed the room to the fireplace. Her breath came hard and shallow, the way it always did when memories pressed too close. She bent slowly, struck a match, and watched as the fire snapped to life, hungry and orange. For a long moment she just stood there, letter trembling in her hand. Then she fed the corner of the page into the flames. The fire licked at it, curled its edges, but it did not burn. Evelyn blinked, pulled it back, tried again, pushed the paper deep into the coals. Smoke hissed, sparks jumped, but when she snatched it out, the words were still there. Clear. Untouched. Her mouth went dry. The match slipped from her fingers and died in the ash. Evelyn staggered back, clutching the letter to her chest. Her heart thundered. She whispered a prayer she hadn't spoken in decades, words cracked and brittle on her tongue. Dear Lord, don't let this be. But she couldn't finish. Because she could hear something. At first, it was faint. A sound tucked deep in her memory, one she hadn't let herself recall in 50 years. A baby's cry. Thin. Sharp. Desperate, her hands flew to her ears, pressing hard. The sound wasn't in the room, it was in her mind, her past clawing its way back. She shook her head, whispering, No. No, I buried it. I buried it all. Her eyes darted toward the window, toward the black silhouette of the barn ruins across the field. Half collapsed, its skeleton of charred beams still stood after all these years. She had never torn it down. Couldn't. Didn't dare. The crying grew louder in her head until she sank into the chair again, rocking forward and back, her body trembling. Not real. Not real. Just the wind. Hours passed before she moved again. When she finally climbed the stairs to her bedroom, dawn was just beginning to scrape at the horizon. The letter lay heavy in her pocket, as if it had fused itself to her. That night, sleep did not come. Dreams did. Flames. Screams. Her hands blackened with soot. A shadowed figure falling. The sharp crack of wood splintering. And a voice, his voice. Her husband James. Whispering, You'll never escape me, Evelyn. Never. She woke with a gasp, sweat soaking through her nightgown. She fumbled for the lamp, but before her hand reached it, she saw something on the bedside table. Her heart seized. It was the letter. Unfolded. And this time, beneath the original words, another line had appeared. In handwriting she recognized. Her husband's. I told you I'd come back. The handwriting on the letter was a knife to her chest. James. She would know it anywhere. The sharp angles, the way he pressed the pen too hard, leaving grooves in the paper. Evelyn's throat tightened. James Carter had been dead for 50 years. She had seen the flames consume him with her own eyes. But now his words stared back at her from across the decades. I told you I'd come back. She clutched the sheet so tightly it crumpled in her fist. The house seemed to hold its breath. Her reflection in the darkened window looked back at her, wide-eyed, terrified, as though she were seeing a stranger. And then, unbidden, the memories came. It was 1965, and she was 23. The farmhouse was alive then, freshly painted, sun-warmed, filled with the smell of bread and wood polish. Evelyn was a young bride, proud to be Mrs. James Carter. James was handsome, with a grin that won over strangers and a laugh that filled every room. He worked the land with strong hands, came home with dirt under his nails and sweat on his collar. At first, she thought herself lucky. She loved him fiercely. Too fiercely. But soon, the charm soured. His laugh turned sharp. His hands, once gentle, grew heavy and cruel. She remembered the first time he struck her, how he had apologized afterward with flowers plucked from the roadside. How she had told herself it was just once. How the bruises later taught her otherwise. The neighbors never asked. And she never told. In towns like theirs, people looked away from what they didn't want to see. Then came the baby. Anna. Her Anna. Evelyn remembered the soft weight of her daughter against her chest, the tiny fingers curling around her own. She remembered rocking her in the night, singing lullabies under her breath to drown out the sound of James raging downstairs. James hadn't wanted the baby. Said she was a burden. Said Evelyn spent too much time loving that child and not enough time loving him. The fights grew louder, uglier. Evelyn began to live in silence, swallowing her fear, shielding Anna as best she could. But shadows have long arms. Evelyn jerked awake from the memory, clutching the edges of the table as though she might fall. She pressed her palms into her eyes until sparks danced behind her lids. "No," she whispered. "Not again. I can't." Her gaze lifted, and she froze. There, on the table before her, lay an old photograph. Her wedding photograph. She had not seen it in years, had not kept any pictures of James in the house. She had burned them all. Or thought she had. In the photo, she stood in her white dress, smiling with all the hope of a girl who believed in forever. Beside her, James beamed, one arm draped over her shoulder. His eyes in the picture seemed to bore into her now, sharp and accusing. Her breath caught as she touched the image. The edges were singed, blackened. The photograph smelled of smoke. And as she held it, faintly, impossibly, she heard James's voice, low and close, like someone whispering in her ear. "You can't bury me, Evelyn. I'm still here." The wedding photo still lay on the table when Evelyn heard it. A sound she hadn't heard in years. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. Pressing onto the porch boards just outside her door. Her heart jolted. No one came here. Not at this hour. Not ever. She gripped the edge of the table, forcing her frail body upright. The photograph slipped from her fingers, landing face down on the floor. For a long moment, she stood frozen, listening. The footsteps stopped. Silence stretched, so sharp it rang in her ears. Then, 3 knocks. Rap. 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 Her breath caught in her chest. The porch light flickered, buzzing like it was straining against the dark. She moved slowly, every creak of the floorboards betraying her. When she reached the door, she pressed her ear to the wood. A voice. Young. Male. "Mrs. Carter?" Her heart twisted. No one had called her that in decades. Another pause. Then, gently, It's Ryan. Ryan Taylor. I think we're related." Evelyn's brow furrowed. Related? She had no relatives left. Everyone was gone, buried, scattered. Still, there was something in the boy's voice, hesitant, almost careful, that tugged at her. Against her better judgment, she unlocked the chain and opened the door just a crack. On the porch stood a boy of maybe 16. Dark hair. Thin frame. His jacket looked too big for him, sleeves rolled at the cuffs. His eyes, though, sharp, searching. Evelyn squinted. "I don't know you." I know," he said quickly. His breath puffed white in the cool air. "But my grandmother was your sister. At least, that's what my mom told me." The words rattled her. Sister. She hadn't spoken that word in half a century. She opened the door a little wider. The boy shifted, pulling something from his backpack. A folded piece of paper. He held it out, almost like an offering. "Family tree project," he explained. "For school. My mom said you might fill in some pieces." Her hands trembled as she took the paper. Names sprawled across it, branches leading backward. And there, written faintly, was hers. Evelyn Carter. Her throat tightened. Who sent you here?" Ryan hesitated. "No one. I wanted to meet you. I've heard things. About this house. About you." Evelyn stiffened. "What things?" He glanced away. "That you don't leave. That you keep secrets." The words hit like a strike to the chest. She should have sent him away, slammed the door, gone back to her silence. But something in his expression, earnest, curious, almost hungry, kept her rooted. Against all reason, she stepped back. "Come in, then." The boy crossed the threshold, eyes wide as he scanned the old walls, the photographs hidden in drawers, the shadows clinging to every corner. He sat at the kitchen table, waiting politely while Evelyn made tea with shaking hands. The kettle hissed. Cups clinked. Steam curled between them. Ryan leaned forward, studying her face. "Mrs. Carter, is it true?" Her hand froze on the handle. "True?" He lowered his voice, eyes locked onto hers. "What really happened to your daughter?" The question cut through the air like glass shattering. Evelyn's hand slipped, the cup tipping, tea spilling across the table. Her lips parted, but no words came. Ryan didn't flinch. He just stared, as though he had been waiting his whole life for her answer. The spilled tea crept across the table like a dark stain spreading into her silence. Evelyn didn't move to clean it. Her trembling hand stayed clenched around the edge of her chair. Across from her, Ryan didn't look away. His young eyes were too steady, too knowing. "What really happened to your daughter, Mrs. Carter?" he asked again, softer this time. Evelyn's throat closed. The words refused to come. For 50 years she had kept the truth sealed inside her chest, buried deep like a coffin under the orchard. Finally, she whispered, "You shouldn't be here," but Ryan leaned forward, refusing to let her retreat. "They say you had a baby once. A little girl. Nobody remembers her name. Nobody even knows where she went. It's like she never existed." Evelyn's eyes stung. She turned her face away, staring at the wall, the peeling wallpaper, anything but the boy's gaze. "Her name," she said, voice cracking, "was Anna." The name hung in the air like smoke. Evelyn hadn't spoken it aloud in decades. It tasted of ash and salt on her tongue. Ryan's eyes flickered with something, recognition, maybe. Or triumph. "She was beautiful," Evelyn whispered. Her hands, remembering, lifted slightly, curling as if they still cradled an infant. Soft skin, hair like spun gold. She laughed before she could even walk. A laugh so pure it. Her voice broke. "She was mine. Mine to protect." Ryan waited. The kitchen clock ticked, loud, merciless. And then, he pressed. Evelyn's lips trembled. The air seemed to thicken with memory, pulling her back into that night. She saw James's furious eyes, the way he loomed over her, his voice slurred with whiskey, his hand clenching into fists. She saw the crib in the corner, Anna crying, the fire beginning to lick at the barn's wooden beams. She shook her head violently, snapping herself back. I don't remember," she lied. "One day she was gone. And no one asked. Not the neighbors, not the police. No one wanted to know." Ryan tilted his head, studying her. "That's not true. You remember." Evelyn's hands curled into fists on the table. "Why are you here, boy? Who told you about Anna?" Ryan's voice dropped low, almost a whisper. "I don't need anyone to tell me." "I know." Evelyn's pulse raced. "Know what?" His eyes glinted, reflecting the dim kitchen light. "I know where she is buried." The room seemed to collapse around her. For a moment, Evelyn thought she hadn't heard him right. Her ears rang, her chest squeezed tight. "What did you say?" Ryan leaned back slowly, his calm too unnatural for his age. "I've been out there. By the orchard. There's a place where the ground doesn't sit right. Where the earth looks disturbed. Like it's been hiding something for a very long time." Evelyn's body shook. No, you couldn't have." Her voice failed. She gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white. "The letter. The photograph. James's voice. And now this boy." All of it pressing down, pulling her deeper into the grave she thought she'd buried long ago. Ryan's gaze didn't soften. He spoke as if the words had been rehearsed. "If you come with me, Mrs. Carter, I can show you." Evelyn's blood ran cold. The orchard had always been Evelyn's prison. Rows of twisted apple trees, their branches knotted and skeletal, loomed against the night sky like an army of silent witnesses. She hadn't walked among them in years. Not since that night. Yet here she was, clutching a lantern in one hand, the other gripping Ryan's arm for balance. The boy moved with quiet determination, guiding her through the dew-soaked grass, his eyes fixed ahead. "Where are you taking me?" Evelyn's voice cracked, trembling in the still air. "You'll see," Ryan said simply. His tone carried no hesitation. The wind rustled through the branches, sending a shiver up her spine. The smell of damp earth clung to the air, thick and suffocating. Evelyn's lantern threw wild shadows across the ground, shapes that seemed to twist and bend like figures from her past. Every step felt heavier. Memories pressed in. She saw herself younger, running through these same trees with a baby in her arms, whispering lullabies to drown out James's angry shouts. She had loved the orchard once. It had been a place of safety, of summer afternoons and Anna's laughter echoing between the rows. Until it wasn't. Ryan stopped suddenly. He pointed to a patch of ground near the far edge of the orchard. The earth there was uneven, slightly raised, as though something had been buried and time had failed to smooth it out. "Here," he whispered. Evelyn froze, the lantern rattling in her trembling hands. Her breath came sharp and shallow. "No, it can't be." Ryan knelt and began clawing at the soil with his bare hands. Each scoop of dirt made Evelyn's stomach churn. She staggered forward, dropping to her knees despite the pain in her bones, her fingers digging desperately beside his. The earth was cold, heavy. She scraped until her nails tore, until the dirt filled her lungs and choked her throat. All the while she whispered, "Please, no. Please, God, no." Then Ryan's hand struck something solid. Wood. A box. They dug faster, pulling the small wooden chest free from the soil. It was weathered, the lid warped, the hinges rusted with age. Evelyn's hands hovered above it, trembling. She couldn't breathe. "This is it," Ryan said. His voice was steady, almost too steady for someone so young. Evelyn shook her head violently. "No. It should be a grave. Not a box. Not." Her words broke apart as Ryan pried the lid open. The creak of the hinges echoed like a scream in the night. Inside, there was no body. No child. Only a bundle of papers, yellowed with time. Photographs, letters, fragments of a life Evelyn thought she had destroyed long ago. Her breath hitched as she lifted the top photograph. It was of her and James, smiling on their wedding day. Another of her holding Anna in the orchard, sunlight in her hair. Then letters, handwritten in her own script, confessions she had written in secret after that terrible night. Words she had burned, words that should not exist. Her eyes widened, terror flooding her veins. This isn't possible. I destroyed these. I burned them with my own hands." Ryan looked up at her, his face shadowed by the lantern's flicker. His voice was quiet, but sharp. "So it was you." Evelyn dropped the photograph as if it had turned to fire in her hand. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. The orchard pressed in around her, the trees creaking, the night swallowing her whole. The orchard was silent, save for the rasp of Evelyn's breath and the faint creak of branches overhead. The box sat between them, its rotten wood split open, spilling ghosts onto the ground. Evelyn's fingers hovered above the photographs as though touching them might summon something terrible. Her hands shook, her chest rising and falling in shallow gasps. "These shouldn't exist," she whispered. "I burned them. I swear I did." Ryan's sharp eyes glinted in the lantern light. "But they do. And they were buried here. Right where you thought no one would find them." Evelyn's gaze snapped to his. "I didn't bury them. I never." Her voice faltered. Her own handwriting stared back at her from the fragile pages. Words scrawled in ink that had bled and faded with time. Letters to herself. Confessions. "I am afraid of what James will do. I am afraid of what I will do." She turned the page with trembling hands. "The baby cries and I can't make it stop. Sometimes I think James is right. Sometimes I think I don't deserve her. Evelyn's breath hitched. No, these were just thoughts. Not the truth. I wrote them when I was broken. After the fire. After. Ryan cut her off, his voice low, dangerous for someone so young. After what? After you killed your husband? After you let your daughter die? The words struck her like blows. She recoiled, her body curling inward as if shielding herself. Tears spilled hot down her wrinkled cheeks. I didn't kill Anna, she said, almost pleading. I never would've, she was my life. My only light. Ryan didn't blink. Then where is she? The question hung in the night, heavier than any accusation. The orchard seemed to wait for her answer. Evelyn pressed her hands over her ears, rocking back and forth in the dirt like a child. I don't know. I don't know. All I remember is the fire, the screaming, James. Her voice broke into a sob. And then silence. Ryan's jaw tightened. He picked up one of the letters, holding it under the lantern. His lips moved as he read, his face hardening. If Anna doesn't stop crying, James will snap. And if he does, I will snap first. I have to do something. He looked back at Evelyn, eyes sharp with fury. So it was you. Evelyn's whole body sagged. No, she whispered. You don't understand. I wrote those words in fear, not in truth. I was trapped. James, he made me believe terrible things about myself. I thought I was going mad. But I never hurt her. I couldn't. Ryan stared at her, unflinching. Then why bury this? Why hide it, if you had nothing to hide? Evelyn shook her head helplessly. I didn't. I swear I didn't. The lantern's flame wavered, throwing shadows across her gaunt face. The orchard seemed to close in, pressing its secrets tighter. Ryan leaned closer, his voice a whisper like a blade at her throat. You've been lying your whole life. And now the truth is finally out. Evelyn's hands gripped the edge of the box. Her voice cracked as she whispered back, the truth is, I don't know if I deserve forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve to still be alive. Her confession broke something in the night air. For the first time, Ryan's expression flickered, not with pity, but with something darker. Calculation. The orchard seemed to hold its breath. The lantern's flame sputtered in the damp wind, painting Ryan's face in golden shadow. His eyes didn't look like a boy's anymore. Evelyn wrapped her shawl tighter around her thin shoulders. She wanted to go back to the safety of her porch light, back to her silence, back to forgetting. But she couldn't, not with that box in the dirt, not with this boy staring at her like he had waited his whole life for this moment. Who sent you? She asked finally, her voice brittle. No child comes here alone. Ryan tilted his head. You really don't remember me, do you? Evelyn's stomach tightened. Remember you? He smiled faintly, though there was no warmth in it. You keep looking at me like I'm a stranger. Like I just wandered in from the road. But I've been here before. Evelyn blinked, heart racing. No, I would have known. I would have remembered. Ryan's smile widened, thin, sharp. You only remember what you want. The words cut deep. Her hands shook as she bent to gather the letters, clutching them to her chest like armor. Enough games. Who are you? He stepped closer, the shadow swallowing half his face. I told you. My name is Ryan Taylor. But that's not all of it. Evelyn waited, her chest heaving. My mother, Ryan said slowly, used to sit at the edge of her bed, crying at night. She told me she had a sister once. A sister who betrayed her. A sister who destroyed everything. That sister was you. Evelyn's breath caught. No, your mother. Ryan's eyes gleamed. Her name was Rose. The name slammed into Evelyn like a blow. Rose. Her little sister. Her secret, the one she had abandoned long before the fire, long before Anna disappeared. She hadn't heard that name in 50 years. Her lips trembled. Rose is dead. Ryan's expression hardened. She was. But not before she told me the truth. Evelyn staggered back, her frail body shaking. That's not possible. Rose hated me. She hated this house. She never. She hated you, Ryan interrupted, his voice sharp. And she made sure I would hate you too. Evelyn felt the orchard close in on her, the ground tilting beneath her feet. The shadow seemed to whisper Rose's name over and over, like a curse carried by the wind. Ryan stepped forward, lowering his voice to a near whisper. She told me what you did to Anna. She told me how you let her die. How you buried the truth just like you buried this box. Evelyn's knees buckled. She clutched at a tree trunk to steady herself. No. Rose wasn't here. She couldn't have known. Ryan's voice sharpened. But she did know. And now so do I. Evelyn stared at him, her vision blurring with tears. The boy's face swam before her eyes, his features twisting in the flicker of lantern light. For a split second, she swore she saw not Ryan but James, her husband, his jawline, his eyes, his fury. She blinked, and Ryan was just a boy again. But her body trembled as though she had seen a ghost. Who are you really? She whispered, her voice breaking. Because you're not just Rose's grandson. I can feel it. You're something else. Ryan didn't answer. He only smiled, slow, deliberate, unsettling. And in the silence, Evelyn realized she wasn't sure whether the boy standing in front of her was flesh and blood, or something her past had conjured to finally punish her. The orchard seemed to hold its breath. The lantern's flame sputtered in the damp wind, painting Ryan's face in golden shadow. His eyes didn't look like a boy's anymore. Evelyn wrapped her shawl tighter around her thin shoulders. She wanted to go back to the safety of her porch light, back to her silence, back to forgetting. But she couldn't, not with that box in the dirt, not with this boy staring at her like he had waited his whole life for this moment. Who sent you? She asked finally, her voice brittle. No child comes here alone. Ryan tilted his head. You really don't remember me, do you? Evelyn's stomach tightened. Remember you? He smiled faintly, though there was no warmth in it. You keep looking at me like I'm a stranger. Like I just wandered in from the road. But I've been here before. Evelyn blinked, heart racing. No, I would have known. I would have remembered. Ryan's smile widened, thin, sharp. You only remember what you want. The words cut deep. Her hands shook as she bent to gather the letters, clutching them to her chest like armor. Enough games. Who are you? He stepped closer, the shadow swallowing half his face. I told you. My name is Ryan Taylor. But that's not all of it. Evelyn waited, her chest heaving. My mother, Ryan said slowly, used to sit at the edge of her bed, crying at night. She told me she had a sister once. A sister who betrayed her. A sister who destroyed everything. That sister was you. Evelyn's breath caught. No, your mother. Ryan's eyes gleamed. Her name was Rose. The name slammed into Evelyn like a blow. Rose. Her little sister. Her secret, the one she had abandoned long before the fire, long before Anna disappeared. She hadn't heard that name in 50 years. Her lips trembled. Rose is dead. Ryan's expression hardened. She was. But not before she told me the truth. Evelyn staggered back, her frail body shaking. That's not possible. Rose hated me. She hated this house. She never. She hated you, Ryan interrupted, his voice sharp. And she made sure I would hate you too. Evelyn felt the orchard close in on her, the ground tilting beneath her feet. The shadow seemed to whisper Rose's name over and over, like a curse carried by the wind. Ryan stepped forward, lowering his voice to a near whisper. She told me what you did to Anna. She told me how you let her die. How you buried the truth just like you buried this box. Evelyn's knees buckled. She clutched at a tree trunk to steady herself. No. Rose wasn't here. She couldn't have known. Ryan's voice sharpened. But she did know. And now so do I. Evelyn stared at him, her vision blurring with tears. The boy's face swam before her eyes, his features twisting in the flicker of lantern light. For a split second, she swore she saw not Ryan but James, her husband, his jawline, his eyes, his fury. She blinked, and Ryan was just a boy again. But her body trembled as though she had seen a ghost. Who are you really? She whispered, her voice breaking. Because you're not just Rose's grandson. I can feel it. You're something else. Ryan didn't answer. He only smiled, slow, deliberate, unsettling. And in the silence, Evelyn realized she wasn't sure whether the boy standing in front of her was flesh and blood, or something her past had conjured to finally punish her. Evelyn's body trembled as she clung to the cold earth, her tears dripping into the dirt. The orchard smelled of smoke again, though no fire burned. It was as if the ground itself exhaled the past back into her lungs. Ryan stood over her, lantern in hand, his shadow stretching long across the uneven ground. His voice was quiet, but it cut sharper than any blade. You let her die. Evelyn shook her head violently, covering her ears like a child. I didn't. I tried, God knows I tried. But Ryan knelt in front of her, forcing her to meet his eyes. Trying isn't the same as saving. Anna screamed for you. And you left her. Evelyn's chest heaved. The words burrowed into her bones. She had replayed that night 1,000 times, always stopping at the same moment, the beam falling, the fire swallowing the crib. But in Ryan's voice, she heard the one thing she never allowed herself to say out loud, I failed her. Her shoulders sagged under the weight of it. I hear her sometimes, she whispered. At night. Crying from the walls. I leave the porch light on because what if she finds her way back? Ryan's expression flickered, the faintest glimmer of something, pity, maybe, but it vanished as quickly as it came. She won't come back, he said coldly. Not the way you want. Evelyn closed her eyes, fresh tears cutting lines down her cheeks. Then why are you here? Why dig up these ghosts? Why now? Ryan's lips curved into something between a smile and a sneer. Because someone had to remind you. Someone had to make you face it. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. I know the truth, Evelyn. I know what you did after the fire. Her eyes snapped open, terror flaring. What are you talking about? Ryan didn't blink. The grave by the orchard. The one you thought nobody saw. You buried more than just letters that night. Her heart seized. No, that's not true. But his words clawed at her, pulling forward scraps of memory she had tried to bury. The dirt on her hands. The hole in the orchard. The way she had whispered prayers as she covered it. Her breath came in shallow gasps. It wasn't her. It couldn't have been her. Ryan's eyes locked on hers. Then who was it? The silence stretched, heavy, suffocating. Evelyn's lips trembled as she whispered, almost too faint to hear, James. Her own confession made her reel. She saw it again, the poker striking, the blood, his body crumpling. The fire had hidden what she'd done, but afterward, in the dead of night, she had dragged what was left of him to the orchard. Dug the hole with blistered hands. Covered him with earth, praying no one would ever look there. Her voice broke. I buried my husband. Ryan's gaze didn't soften. If anything, it sharpened. And you let the world believe Anna was in that grave instead. Evelyn shook her head, sobbing. No, I never said that. I never meant. But Ryan's voice thundered, low and merciless. You let the story rot until even you couldn't tell the difference. Husband. Daughter. Guilt. Lies. All buried together. Evelyn collapsed forward, her body racked with sobs. Her voice was hoarse, broken. Then why are you here? Who sent you, if not Rose? Ryan leaned in, his lips almost at her ear. Because I'm not just Rose's grandson, he whispered. Evelyn froze, the orchard spinning around her. Ryan's next words shattered what little remained of her fragile world. I'm Anna's son. The words lodged in Evelyn's chest like shards of glass. I'm Anna's son. Her vision blurred. The orchard tilted. The lantern flickered, casting Ryan's young face in light that made him look both impossibly young and terrifyingly old. That's not possible, she rasped. Anna, she died in that fire. I saw. Ryan's jaw tightened. You saw what you wanted to see. But she didn't die, Mrs. Carter. She lived. And because of you, she lived in hell. Evelyn's head shook furiously. No. No, you're lying. You're trying to break me. Ryan pulled something from his jacket pocket, a photograph, creased, weathered, edges torn. He held it out. Evelyn's trembling hands reached forward, hesitant, then snatched it like it might vanish. The image was faded, but the girl's face was clear. Blonde hair. Bright eyes. A soft smile that mirrored Evelyn's own when she was young. Her heart stopped. Anna. Older, maybe 6 or 7. Alive. Evelyn's breath came in short, choking gasps. No, no, this can't be real. Ryan's voice cut through her denial. It's real. She survived. Someone pulled her from that fire. Someone who raised her far away from you. She grew up. She had me. Evelyn clutched the photograph to her chest, her frail body shaking. The weight of 50 years of grief cracked open into something rawer, sharper. Hope. But hope was cruel. Where is she now? Evelyn whispered, desperate. Where's Anna? Ryan's expression darkened. Dead. The single word dropped like a stone into her chest. Evelyn staggered, clutching at the tree trunk to keep from collapsing. How? She croaked. Ryan's eyes gleamed with fury. Because of you. Because you left her to burn. Because you let her grow up without a mother. She carried that wound all her life. She told me about the nightmares, the screaming, the feeling of being unwanted. She drank herself to sleep. She put her faith in the wrong people. And eventually, it killed her. Evelyn's body crumpled into the dirt. Her sobs tore through the orchard, jagged and broken. No, oh God, no. Anna. Ryan didn't flinch. He stood tall above her, his young frame rigid with anger. Do you know what it's like to grow up with a mother who can't look at you without remembering the fire she came from? Do you know what it's like to be told, again and again, that you were born out of smoke and guilt? Evelyn's voice shook. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know she lived. That's the problem. Ryan's words sliced into her. You didn't know. You didn't care enough to know. You buried your husband. You buried your guilt. And you buried her too. Evelyn clutched the photograph tighter, pressing it to her lips, rocking in the dirt like she could will Anna back into her arms. If she lived, then maybe she forgave me. Maybe she. She didn't, Ryan spat. She hated you. She called you the witch at the edge of town. The woman who let her burn. Evelyn's heart fractured. Each word was a dagger. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't speak through the sobs ripping her open. Ryan crouched low, his voice almost tender now, though it carried the edge of a blade. And now, Mrs. Carter, I'm here to finish what she couldn't. To make sure you never forget what you did. The lantern flame flickered. The orchard seemed to lean in closer, waiting. Evelyn's hands trembled so violently the photograph nearly slipped from her grasp. For the first time, she realized Ryan hadn't come for answers. He had come for justice. The lantern burned low, casting the orchard in sickly gold. Evelyn sat slumped against the base of a tree, clutching the faded photograph to her chest as if it could shield her from what stood before her. Ryan hovered just beyond the circle of light. His shadow stretched tall, looming, a boy's body carrying the weight of a man's fury. You've had your silence for 50 years, he said evenly, his voice carrying the calm cruelty of a judge delivering a sentence. But silence doesn't erase sins. Evelyn's voice cracked as she whispered, I didn't know. I didn't know she lived. I would've. Ryan cut her off sharply. You would've what? Saved her? Raised her? Loved her? You had your chance. And you failed. Anna paid for it every day of her life. The orchard seemed to tremble with his words. Evelyn pressed the photo tighter to her lips, her frail body rocking. If she lived, if she had you, then maybe there was still something good. Ryan's eyes hardened. Something good? Do you know what it's like to grow up with a mother drowning in ghosts? To hear her scream your grandmother's name in her sleep? To be told, again and again, that you were the child of fire and ash? His voice dropped low, trembling with rage barely contained. I wasn't her redemption. I was her punishment. And you, he pointed a shaking finger at Evelyn, you made it that way. Evelyn's chest seized with sobs. I never meant for any of this. Ryan stepped closer. His hand slipped into his jacket, and when it emerged, something glinted in the lantern light. A knife. Small, but sharp. Its blade caught the glow like a sliver of fire. Evelyn's heart lurched. No, she gasped. Please, no. Ryan's voice was steady. This isn't murder. This is justice. One life for another, one scream for another. One grave for another. Her eyes widened in horror. You don't understand. I loved her. I loved Anna more than my own life. I tried to save her, I tried. Ryan crouched low, the blade flashing between them. His face was inches from hers, his voice a hiss. Trying doesn't matter. She died believing you didn't care. The orchard fell into silence, broken only by Evelyn's ragged breathing. Her fragile body shook with fear, but deep beneath it, something else stirred, a spark of defiance that had kept her alive through James's fists, through years of whispers, through half a century of guilt. She raised her chin, tears streaking her wrinkled face. Her voice, though trembling, carried a flicker of steel. Then do it, she whispered. If this is justice, if this is what I deserve, then finish it. For the first time, Ryan faltered. His hand trembled around the knife. His young face, hardened by years of rage, flickered with uncertainty. Evelyn's gaze held his, steady despite the tears. But know this, if Anna lived, and if she had you, then somewhere inside her, she forgave me. She had to. Otherwise, she would never have let you live. The words struck him. His grip tightened, then loosened. His chest rose and fell in quick, uneven breaths. The knife hovered in the air between them, the orchard holding its breath. Ryan's voice cracked, just for a moment. You don't know her like I did. Evelyn's voice softened, almost maternal. No. But I know love. And I know hate. And only one of those could have given me you. The knife hovered in the trembling air between them, a thin sliver of steel reflecting Evelyn's tear-streaked face. The orchard was utterly still, as though even the trees had stopped breathing to watch. Ryan's chest heaved. His knuckles whitened on the handle. Every breath he took came sharp, uneven, as though he were trying to hold himself together against a lifetime of rage. Evelyn didn't flinch. Frail as she was, her back pressed against the tree, her eyes locked on his. Do it, she whispered again, her voice steady now. End it. Ryan's jaw clenched. His hand twitched, but he didn't strike. You want to die that badly? He spat. You think this is mercy? Evelyn shook her head slowly. No. I think it's cowardice. If you kill me, you prove nothing. You only become like James. Like me. A person haunted forever. Ryan's face twisted. He pressed the blade closer, until its cold tip kissed the hollow of her throat. Evelyn winced but did not turn away. Her voice was barely a breath. I'm not afraid of dying. I've been dead for 50 years. But you're still alive. And if you spill my blood, you'll carry me with you forever. Ryan's arm shook violently. His young face crumpled for a moment, as though the boy inside was fighting the man he wanted to be. His voice cracked. She hated you. She told me, every night, she told me, how you let her burn. How she dreamed of a mother who cared enough to fight for her. Evelyn's eyes brimmed with tears, but her voice held firm. And yet she still brought you into this world. Do you think hate alone could have done that? Do you think hate could have kept you alive when she wanted to disappear? Ryan's breathing faltered. His grip on the knife loosened, then tightened again. You're lying, he whispered, though his voice trembled. You're just trying to save yourself. Evelyn shook her head, her tears falling freely. No. I'm trying to save you. The orchard seemed to pulse with silence, the lantern flame wavering as though it too were unsure who would break first. Ryan's eyes shimmered with a storm of emotions, fury, grief, doubt. For a moment, his hand lowered. The knife wavered. Then he snapped. With a guttural cry, he slammed the blade into the earth beside her head. The steel drove deep into the roots of the tree, inches from her neck. The lantern light caught his face, contorted, broken, wet with tears. Evelyn gasped, her hand flying to her throat, her heart hammering. She stared at the knife buried in the soil, so close she could smell the cold steel. Ryan staggered back, his chest heaving, his eyes wild. I can't do it, he shouted. He grabbed his hair with both hands, pulling, shaking. She wanted me to hate you. She raised me on that hate. But I can't. He fell to his knees, his sobs ripping through the orchard like a child's. Evelyn, trembling, slid down the trunk until she was eye level with him. Slowly, carefully, she reached out a frail hand and laid it on his shoulder. Her voice broke as she whispered, you don't have to carry her hate. You can choose. You can let her rest. Ryan's sobs quieted, though his body still shook. His eyes flicked to hers, confused, desperate, searching. But before either of them could speak again, a new sound split the silence. Footsteps. Heavy. Deliberate. Coming from the far end of the orchard. Evelyn's eyes widened. Ryan froze, his tears still wet on his cheeks. Someone else was here. The footsteps grew louder. Slow. Deliberate. Each one crushing fallen apples beneath heavy boots. Ryan's head snapped toward the sound, his tear-streaked face shifting instantly into something harder, more alert. He yanked the knife from the dirt, his grip tight once more. Evelyn's frail hand hovered in the air, frozen. Who's there? Ryan barked, his voice shaking but forceful. No answer. Only the crunch of leaves, closer now. Evelyn's breath quickened. The orchard, which moments ago had seemed like a confessional chamber, now closed in like a trap. From the shadows between the rows of trees, a figure emerged. Tall. Broad. Wrapped in an old work coat that sagged heavy with rain and earth. His face was half shrouded by the brim of a worn hat. But Evelyn knew him. Her body seized. Her mouth fell open in a silent scream. It couldn't be. James. Her dead husband. Ryan stepped protectively in front of her, blade raised. His voice was hoarse. Stay back. The man stopped just at the edge of the lantern light. His voice was low, gravelly, dripping with mockery. Still keeping secrets, Evelyn? Her chest heaved, her mind scrambled, desperate to reconcile what her eyes were seeing. James had died. She had buried him. She had buried him, hadn't she? Evelyn pressed her fists to her temples. No, you're dead. You're dead. The man chuckled, a sound as cruel and familiar as the back of his hand. Dead men don't walk, Evelyn. But ghosts? Oh, ghosts walk everywhere. Ryan turned, confused, his knife trembling. Who is this? Evelyn's lips trembled. The name slipped out like a curse. James. Ryan blinked, stunned. Your husband? The one who… Yes, James interrupted, stepping forward into the light. His eyes, cold and sharp, glinted like steel. The one who built this house. The one who kept this family together while he jabbed a finger at Evelyn, let everything rot. Evelyn shook her head violently, tears spilling. You don't belong here. You're gone. I buried you. James leaned close, his face inches from hers, his breath reeking of whiskey and soil. You never buried me deep enough. Ryan lunged between them, his knife raised. Stay away from her. James's gaze slid to the boy, sharp and assessing. And who's this? Another secret you dragged into the dirt, Evelyn? Another ghost you forgot to bury? Evelyn's voice cracked. He's Anna's son. For the first time, James's expression faltered. A shadow crossed his face, quick and unreadable. Then his lips curled into a bitter smile. Anna. Always Anna. Even now, she gets more of your love than I ever did. Evelyn's frail hands balled into fists. You never wanted her. You wanted her gone. You. Careful, James hissed, his face darkening. Say it, and you'll damn yourself further than you already are. Ryan's voice was sharp. Tell me the truth. Did you kill Anna? The orchard fell silent. The lantern flickered. James tilted his head, a cruel smirk forming. What do you think? Evelyn screamed, the sound tearing from her chest. Ryan's knife wavered, his arms shaking with rage. James took another step closer, his shadow swallowing them both. Everything that rotted in this family, he snarled, started with her. And tonight, he raised his hand, the glint of metal flashing in his palm, it ends with her too. Evelyn gasped. Ryan staggered back. In James's hand gleamed a revolver. The revolver gleamed in James's weathered hand, the lantern light crawling over its steel barrel. Evelyn's heart hammered against her ribs, her frail body trembling as if it could collapse at any second. Ryan stood frozen, knife clenched, caught between rage and terror. His young chest rose and fell rapidly, every breath sharp enough to cut. James's eyes glittered with malice. Half a century of silence, Evelyn. Half a century of pretending. But you can't bury me. You can't bury what you did. Evelyn's voice cracked, but she forced it out. What I did? You started the fire, James. You wanted her gone. You wanted Anna gone. Ryan's head whipped toward Evelyn, his eyes wide. What? James smirked, unbothered by the accusation. You think anyone would have believed me if I told them? A crying child in a burning barn, a mother who couldn't protect her? No. They'd believe me. They always did. The words dropped like stones in the orchard. Evelyn's lips trembled, the memory of that night searing back, Anna's cries, the smoke, James's shadow disappearing into the flames. Ryan's rage boiled over. He lunged, knife raised, aiming for James's chest. The revolver fired. The shot cracked through the orchard, echoing like thunder. Evelyn screamed. Ryan staggered back, the knife clattering into the dirt. His hand clutched his shoulder, blood spilling hot and dark between his fingers. No. Evelyn cried, crawling toward him. Her frail hands pressed against the wound, desperate, useless. Stay with me, Ryan, please. James advanced, gun still raised, his boots crushing fallen apples underfoot. Like mother, like daughter, like grandson. All weak. All disappointments. Evelyn's tears blurred her vision, but something fierce ignited in her chest. For the first time in decades, she felt something stronger than fear. Rage. Her eyes locked on James. Her voice, trembling but sharp as glass, cut through the orchard. You destroyed everything. You killed Anna. You killed us. But you won't take him. James sneered. And what will you do, old woman? Cry me to death? Evelyn's gaze darted to the knife lying in the dirt, inches from her trembling hand. Ryan groaned, struggling to rise, blood soaking his jacket. James cocked the revolver again, aiming squarely at the boy's chest. Evelyn's heart pounded. The orchard seemed to scream with her. With a surge of strength she didn't know she still had, Evelyn snatched the knife from the dirt and drove forward. The blade plunged into James's chest. His eyes went wide with shock, the revolver slipping from his hand. He staggered, gasping, his body crumbling like a tree struck by lightning. The lantern light flickered across his face one last time before he collapsed into the orchard soil. Silence. Evelyn's chest heaved, her frail body trembling violently. The knife slipped from her hand, clattering beside James's lifeless form. For a long, endless moment, she could only stare at what she had done. Ryan coughed, blood on his lips, his eyes dazed. Evelyn crawled back to him, gathering him into her arms like she had once held Anna. Her tears soaked his hair. "Stay with me," she begged. "Don't leave me too." "Not you." Ryan's hand, weak but insistent, clutched the faded photograph still pressed to her chest. His voice was a hoarse whisper. She would have forgiven you." Evelyn's sobs tore through the orchard. She rocked him in her arms, the revolver lying cold in the dirt, James's body motionless under the trees. The lantern sputtered and finally died, plunging them into darkness. In the silence, Evelyn's voice rose, raw and broken, carrying into the night, "I'm sorry, Anna. I'm so sorry." And the orchard held her cry like a confession it had waited 50 years to hear.